Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Mishal Saeed, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we're thrilled to have Ryan Ward, the founder and managing director of Rex Marketing and CX, joining us. Ryan brings over 15 years of expertise in sales, marketing, leading a growth agency that's doubled lead pipelines for early stage SaaS startups through demand gen and tech stack optimization. From his days to founding Rex Marketing, he's transforming how SaaS companies scale pre-product market fit. We'll explore his founding story, how Rex Marketing drives growth, and his vision for scaling his dynamic agency. So, going to pass the mic over to you, Ryan. Welcome to Founders Future.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So let's kick things off for the listeners. Take us back to the beginning. What specific problem did you see within the SaaS growth landscape that, inspired you to actually launch Rex Marketing to begin with?
Yeah, for sure. And just a quick correction. So we don't really focus in SaaS per se. What we
Okay.
focus is mostly health tech for the majority of what we do. So early stage health tech startups. And we do work in the SaaS space a bit, but mostly in the healthcare space. I actually come from a healthcare marketing background. I previously, pre-Rex Marketing and CX, I was the head of growth at a telehealth therapy company. When I joined the team, we're an early stage company only based in New York, only serving clients remotely across New York. And over the span of 3 years, I expanded the company across all 50 states, leveraging sales, SEO, content strategy, really just an array of marketing strategies to expand across all 50 states. But I come from, as you mentioned, I come from sales, marketing, growth marketing background. In that role, working closely with therapists and in the mental health care space, I saw a large need for, first off, education in the marketing space. A
Right.
number of licensed clinicians, really in any healthcare space, but specifically in mental health care, the programs they go through to get their training, their clinical hours, and their clinical background very briefly touch on running their own business or running just like a marketing operation for their practices. But it's something that's very much glossed over in many training programs, specifically in the mental health care space. And so, that being said, a lot of clinical directors at healthcare startups or clinical directors at larger group practices with physical locations, they're often just treading water to understand how to grow their brand, how to reach new clients, and ultimately how to expand. And so that's really where I saw the need and where we really step in. We help the individuals who are experts in the clinical space and companies who are expert in the clinical offering, but they just don't know how to reach the right client, get their name out there, and expand. So that's really what inspired us to start Rex Marketing CX. As I said, we focus mainly in the healthcare space. We do have a sprinkling of clients in other industries, but the healthcare and specifically mental health care space is just really near and dear to us, which is why we have that kind of niche focus.
Love that. Wow, thanks for correcting me on that. I love the fact that there's like this huge emphasis that you're bringing to developing brands and really growing a lot of that in the health tech space because there's not a lot of attention given there. I think we see a lot of growth marketing and a lot of wanting to just go after that sort of ICP rather than focus on, hey, they're clinicians, they're healthcare experts that are really good at what they do, but they're not that great at the marketing, the sales, all the other business aspects, right? And they don't really go through some of that in academia. Now, I want to get into sort of the nuts and bolts of really what you offer today for our listeners who don't know who you are or like what you do, but we want to get you some potential clients this way as well through having you on the podcast. Tell us a little bit about how Rex Marketing generates revenue today. What are some of the core offerings that you offer to clients, and how do you structure what you do as well in terms of like the deliverables and like some of the services?
Yeah, great question. So we know what we do well and we focus on that. And so really what we offer is we focus on organic growth for brands, which includes a combination of SEO optimization as well as content strategy. Those really go hand in hand. So we help brands with the organic side of things. We also help with paid. So that includes Google, Meta, TikTok, Snapchat. We've literally helped brands on any platform you can think of. And then X and web design.
Mm.
So ultimately, those are the things that we focus in and what we help our clients with. We're all about helping people, first off, honestly, find their ideal client. A lot of the times, and one of the things that makes us unique is that since we have that focus in the healthcare space, we
Mhm.
understand the red tape and the regulation that comes with healthcare and marketing and advertising. Because there's a lot of, I often hear anecdotes from clients who come to us of, I worked with an agency, they have all this, they have a great reputation, but they just don't understand what we have to go through when we're advertising for depression treatment or
Yeah.
medication, psychiatry. There are a number of like just ins and outs that you need to have when it comes to the industry and understand that's what we focus in and what we do. When it comes to how we offer our services, I'd say brands come to us at a variety of stages. We work with, as I mentioned, some group practices who are maybe have a few locations within their state but have a handful of clinicians. We work with early stage startups where they're trying to launch across all 50 states. That's
Mm.
their ultimate goal. So it really is an array. We help SMB clients launch their first advertising campaign or start to prioritize their SEO, all the way to companies who are have much larger advertising budgets, who are looking to do a full website redesign, who are looking to reach clients across all 50 states to offer psychiatry services. It really is a mix. But yeah, I'd say the thing that makes us also a bit unique is we really customize to what the brand needs. Like I said, we work with small practices all the way to large Series A companies. We kind of work across the board with a number of different types of clients and different sizes of companies.
That's so cool. I love the fact that that's so important right now is there are a lot of marketing agencies out there. They want to like work with so many different verticals, but they don't really understand, like you said, the regulations and like, some of the parameters of, hey, what are we working with here? And oftentimes there's almost like that unethical aspect of it where they acquire a client and then they run the ads or they start a campaign, but then they hit a roadblock and then they're really not familiar with the territory they're in, the Wild West. Okay, we've never seen this happen before. So great to see that you're super integral with the way you've developed your branding and like the service offerings and you're conscientious of it. Now, I'm just curious to learn more about like where are you seeing like the most demand in terms of like services right now for Rex marketing and CX? Are you seeing a lot of clinics reach out for more paid ad services like website optimization? How are you guys generating the most revenue within the company right now?
Yeah, great question. I'd say what's top of mind for the majority of clients who have come to us in the past few months, and namely since January, is organic growth. I'm not sure how much you keep up with it, but when it comes to so the vast majority of clients we work with leverage Google and search engine marketing specifically as their main driver for their page strategy. Over the past few months, when it comes to just Google as an advertiser, they've been under a lot of fire regarding the monopoly they've created with advertising. And it's also driven up costs we've seen over the past few months and towards the end of 2024 as well. That being said, a lot of brands have come to us wanting to scale back or stay stagnant with their ad budgets and invest more of their resources, time, and energy into organic growth. So really, I'd say that's been what's been top of mind for a lot of people is thinking strategically of, okay, how can we peel off from our ad spend, start driving more traffic organically and start trying to reach our client that way versus having to spend more and more into these advertising platforms that are just getting more and more costly, especially the past few months. Especially too, just speaking about mental health care, it's a highly competitive space now. There are a lot of large players in the space, as I'm sure that most people are aware of, such as Talkspace, BetterHelp, these large brands that have a lot amount of funding, which isn't
Yeah.
a new scenario that's been going on since 2021 with the mental health boom.
Mhm.
But that being said, these companies have a lot more money to throw around than early stage startups
Mhm.
and also especially small businesses who are wanting to play in the space. So that being said, we've really seen a large demand for the organic strategy side of things, combination of SEO, X optimization, conversion rate optimization, content strategy. I'd say that's really what's been top of mind.
That's really cool. Yeah, and in a sense, it creates that flywheel for when it's like, hey, we've generated enough clients through organic, we can now have a good sizable ad budget in place and compete with some of the bigger clientele out there, right? I really want to understand now, like your preference for ICP, because you're working with SMBs and you're also working with some of those larger clients. Like, where are you looking to take this? Who do you ideally want to work with so that you can find that consistency with the right alignment and like that predictability in terms of generating results?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd say that truthfully, I actually really pride ourselves when it comes to our ICP of when it comes to company size, serving not only the larger players with a larger budget, but also the smaller clinicians and smaller practices who are just getting things going. As I said, like something that I feel very passionate about is a lot when it comes to specifically speaking about mental health care clinicians. Ultimately, people get their license and they go through their training with the ultimate goal of eventually, most of the time, wanting to go into private practice, wanting to have their own practice, wanting to open a group practice or move in that direction. Very
Mhm.
few people have the vision of, I want to work at a clinic underneath somebody for the rest of my career,
Yeah.
or I want to launch a 50 state wide mental health company. The vast majority of people are in that space of wanting to have their own practice or start a small group practice, but they lack that. A lot of people fail to take that next step or are afraid to go into private practice or start their practices because they lack that knowledge or that training in the business and marketing side of things. Know that we'll always be serving that type of client as an ICP because it's something that I feel very passionate about. And we love working with those types of individuals to help them be able to make the jump to start their own practice, to eventually grow and bring on their first teammates and their first clinicians to work underneath them. Obviously, I also enjoy the larger picture strategy too, moving away from more of the local side of things to working with these larger companies who have an expansion plan across the US or globally. Obviously, just it's a different hat you have to put on for each
Mhm.
conversation. If we're thinking smaller scale, we're thinking larger scale. At the end of the day, I'd say if I had to give a breakdown, about 85% of our clients fall into that mental health care
Mm.
space, but the other 10 to 15%, they fall into just more general healthcare. I
Mm.
think that when it comes to like our ICP of who I'd want to be working with, I'd say any healthcare brand that is in a place where they want to focus on, I'd say, come to us and they know their ideal client. That's
Mm.
often a big hurdle we see in the early conversations is that a startup comes to us or a practice comes to us and they're like, I just want more clients. And
Right.
okay, what's the differentiating factor? As I
Mm.
said earlier, you're not off if you don't have any sort of differentiating factor between your offering, like your startup or your practice, what makes you different from a better help model? What makes you different from a talk space model? What makes you different from the practice that's down the street from you? So I think a lot of that, I often find the clients who we enjoy working with the most are the ones who have done that early foundational work around this is my brand, this is the client I want to target, these are the people I want to work with. I just don't know how to go about reaching them, if that makes
Mm.
sense.
For sure. Yeah, and it's also a lot more, I could assume it's a lot more impactful as for you guys as well to go in. You have a good slate to work with. There's already like that foundation, like you mentioned, in place. They have that brand awareness. They know what they need to do. Okay, now how do we start to get more eyes? Like, how do we reach out more to our audience? And they
Mhm.
know who they're working with now, right? And then you see that proof of concept, and you could take that, you could show the next practice you work with, right? No, that's great. Now, in terms of really the acquisition side of things, your LinkedIn presence, you're speaking at events as well. How are you currently acquiring some of your clients right now? Which channels, whether it's word of mouth, referrals, your own network, maybe even paid ad strategy, has been like the most effective for landing contracts?
Yeah, so I'd say that's a really good question. I'd say that so and I can speak a bit about just our history. Since I come from the healthcare space and the mental health care space, I was very deep in that space for years. So
Mhm.
in the early days when we initially launched and we spun off and started Rex Marketing and CX, we actually started day one with a handful of clients who were like, I want to work with you. Like I want to work I know that you know this space. I know you have the knowledge for this space. I want to work with you for our practice. So I'd say that a lot of the early day was referral, word of mouth, people that just knew of me and knew of my following and my background in the space. So as we've evolved over the past couple of years and grown the company, a lot of what we've done has been a combination of paid strategy. We leverage mainly for our business. We mainly only leverage search engine marketing for our paid strategy, organic. So I actually probably say we are pretty heavy on our content. So whether it be like webinars or it be blogs, we have a number of different types of content that we produce on a regular basis. I'd probably say that in a given month, probably about 20 to 25% of all of our inbound, all of our leads in general are inbound from organic. So we've put a high emphasis, which is obviously makes sense given that's what we focus in. But organic has been a really big player for us over the past couple of years, especially as we built up the brand. Have a combination of direct outreach as well. So connecting with individuals on LinkedIn, email with brands we want to work with, so on and so forth. Yeah, I'd say that's really been our playbook for the past couple of years, and it's worked well for us. We started with me and my co-founder at our initial launch, and now we have a team of 9 of us. It's been a wild ride over the past couple of years.
Incredible. Yeah. And that's for like your marketing team essentially, right? Or are they also involved on the client delivery fulfillment side?
Yeah, great question. So it's a combination. So we work with a combination of individuals who are doing more of the behind the scenes work, some that are working with client communication. Yeah, I'm our lead salesperson for the most part. I still handle that and hold that still close to the chest with our sales and initial conversations with clients.
Yeah.
But when it comes to beyond that, it's a mixture of behind the scenes work and client work.
Cool. So it sounds like you've pretty much figured out a lot of different things on acquisition. You're doing a lot of organic, paid ads as well, and really you've diversified the way in which you reach out to your ideal ICP. On that note, you mentioned you're the one doing sales. Like, what's your approach to sales right now? For some of the listeners who are tuning in, it's one of the hardest parts of running a business is like, how do we actually implement sales systems? How do we implement like marketing, which you figured out? What's been the most effective strategy for you in converting some of those leads into actual clients for Rex marketing? And are you like the only salesperson right now, or do you have other people involved as well in the conversations? How is everything structured currently?
Yeah, so good question. So I'd say, so to answer your last question, I am the only salesperson, the only person leading sales efforts at this point. And to be honest, we're still pretty boutique in terms of how we take our approach. So we're not looking to we don't have the bandwidth to take on 100 new clients like over the course of the next year. Like right now, we work with probably on and off average of about 45 to 50 clients. So we're not onboarding a new client each week. A lot of these clients are also a long time that we've worked with since we launched. So that's really our size as an agency. We really are the kind of the more custom boutique type approach with our clients that we work with. In terms of your first question, so sales operations, like what do we have in place? How do we manage this? So I will say that so my career growth and trajectory, I actually initially started in the SaaS space in business development and sales. So that was my initial like step into tech when I was fresh out of college. So
Yeah.
I've been in sales organizations and operated in that way. So I think that I have the luckily I had that experience of how a sales operation typically functions and how it works and the typical day-to-day operations. I'd say
Yeah.
that literally the first thing that we did, because I didn't want to have to deal with it any other way, was like initial software we purchased was HubSpot.
Mm.
Like we started with HubSpot, we implemented a CRM for relationship management. When it comes, and I'd say that if you don't have a CRM, if you're like an organization that has a sales playbook and a sales motion, you
Yeah.
need to have that in place no matter what size you are. Like it's just a minimum. Like you have to have that.
Yeah.
When it comes to, I'm trying to think other things that we have. Truthfully, HubSpot, I'm trying to think in my sales motion, the main thing that I use is HubSpot for client management and sales outreach. And we also leverage Apollo.io for those aren't aware, like database for leads. We also use their cold emailing functionality. So we actually have cold emails going through Apollo as well for our outbound sales motion. Yeah. And then typically, when it comes to our actual sales call, sales meetings, I typically take a pretty informal approach to
Mhm.
sales calls. I often think that, and I've been doing this for a long time, and I guess it depends on your client and your ICP and your industry.
Yeah.
But with what I've seen work in my experience and with our industry, is definitely much more consultative approach versus I've sat on so many sales calls in my time where you're just being talked at or you're
Yeah.
getting a pitch deck and this is us, this is our case study, this is our success. Now you want to work with us. It's really just tired and drawn out and it's just not my approach to sales. I'm not afraid, especially just with how we operate. If
Mhm.
I don't think that they're a good client for us or that we can't help the brand or they're looking for something that we can't help with, I will
Yeah.
be upfront in the first 5 minutes of the introduction and say, hey, don't want to waste your time. This is what we do.
Mhm.
And what you're looking for is actually this. I can recommend you to somebody, so on and so forth. I think I really take sales conversations really as a consultative partnership type approach and have a more organic conversation around what are you looking to accomplish? What have you tried so far? What have you not done yet? What are you
Mhm.
looking to get help with? This is my basically diagnosis of how we can help and how do we approach it, if that makes sense. That's really my approach to sales.
Yeah, absolutely. Seeing if there's even like a problem for us to even solve with before we can even offer that use case or whatever that solution looks like. No, I think that's great because oftentimes it's so exciting starting like a coaching or consulting offer. Oh, we just need a good offer and like we just need a bunch of clients, but what's overlooked is the fulfillment side, right? Like the quality. And from what it sounds like, it's very customized, everything that you guys are doing right now for your clientele. We've interviewed a few guests. They've run very similar offers, like very customized boutique style service offerings. And they found it like tough to scale without burning out or sacrificing the quality. How have you thought about scaling your offer while still keeping it effective and manageable? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'd say that's where, and for me personally, and this is another reason why we focus in just the niche we do, you really, if you were to take that a consultative approach and not be honed in on a certain industry, I think you would 100% burn out. You would have just so many plates spinning and so many strategies spinning at one time that it would be so hard to keep up and to, again, not get burned out on it.
Yeah.
I'd say that if you were to take that more consultative boutique approach, you really need to hone in on what is your specialty. So even though we do take a pretty consultative approach to our clients, our team has the industry knowledge that the type our ICP is looking for. And that being said, we have our tried and true methods of how we typically approach a project. So although it is pretty custom, we know that this client's probably going to need A, B, C, D. They might not need E, but they're going to need F. This client might come to us, they need A, C, D, they don't need B. So I'd say that's really how we've built out the operation, so to speak, is that we do have our tried and true playbook of services we offer that are pretty standard that we offer with the majority of our clients.
Yeah.
They might not need everything, but that's just because we're so honed in on our niche. I think
Yeah.
that if we weren't and we just worked with an array of types of industries, it would be much harder to scale it and much, much harder to do it well, honestly. It's hard to be an expert at everything. You can't say you're an expert at financial services, health tech, ed
Yeah.
tech. Like that just you just can't be unless you're like a much larger company with a huge team of experts. But as a small scale agency, it's just not possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Almost like a red flag too when you see that, wow, like they're very small, but they serve so many different types of different areas. But that's actually such a great point that you brought up. It's really phenomenal. Like you really, that was the one thing you dialed in is, hey, let's focus on one niche first. Let's create that tried and testimated playbook, get proof of concept, repeat that over and over again, and create that predictability. And I know for
Yep.
some listeners right now, they're also marketers and they're looking to get into the growth marketing space or really go in that direction. And they're probably thinking, hey, where can I get the most results? Or like, where do I find my ICP or my niche to work in? It's really awesome. Now, I'd love to learn from what it sounds like. The growth has been super strong, dialed in on the acquisition side, on the sales side as well. If you could share with us maybe some of the challenges or some of the woes that you're seeing right now with growing the business, what would it be? Is it increasing brand awareness? What are you most focused on solving to keep the momentum going?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd say that biggest challenge that we've seen over, and so it's funny as I just spoke about how we've been so regimented and really honed in on creating a playbook. I'd say that so I come from like more in the like I was head of growth at an ed tech startup where we were offering like direct services, therapy with a client. Like I was more on the software serving side of things and that kind of component of the marketing. When it comes to an agency, so with Rex Marketing CX, this was my first agency experience. I did not come from an agency background. I never had the experience of working in an agency and understanding the operations of how
Mhm.
an agency typically works. So I'd say that in the early days, a lot of hurdles, a lot of trip ups of just understanding how to productize offerings. And really, because I'd say the first year, really, we
Mm.
were too consultative. It's similar to what you were saying with the burnout type of thing,
Yeah.
where we were trying to be too consultative,
Mm.
too custom for each client. And I think that truthfully, in my take of why it was that our team, my co-founder and myself, we don't come from agency backgrounds. So we thought that's what we needed to do. Like we thought that was just the approach we needed to take. But after about a year of that, we realized, no, this is too much. Like we cannot have this and we can't scale at that. So I'd say that the first year was our biggest hurdle was that. I'd say when it comes to our like this, because we launched 2 years ago. So that was first year issues.
Mm.
Second year issue, I'd say that we faced after we got the operations underway, we got our offerings set in stone and kind of what we do. To be truthful, and I often, this probably is a broken record for a lot of people, this second year has been a lot of issues with hiring. That has been one of the biggest things that I've encountered that's been very hard. And
Mm.
I think that I think that part of it is that, especially as you're looking to scale,
Mm.
having early stage employees, it takes a certain person to really fit the mold for that.
Yeah.
And also, too, the niche we operate in is very specific. It is, I truthfully only have one employee that we work with now to date who came from an indirect experience in in the mental health care space. The
Mm.
majority of our other teammates, they had great experience in their field and what they do, but the mental health care space was not their niche. So I think
Mm.
this second year has been a lot of disconnect of weeding through and not, I don't want to make it sound, I feel like weeding through makes it sound a bit negative, but like going through our team and really figuring out who's the best fit for what we do. And so I like this second year has been a lot of trial runs with employees, not working out,
Mm.
hiring, trial run, hire. But I am very happy now. I feel like the team we've established, like at our now at our 2 year mark, like a little past our 2 year mark, is a team I'm very happy about. I feel like
Mm.
everybody brings a lot to the table and has a lot to offer. They may not come from the mental health care space, but they've really skilled up and understood the space. And me being able to share the industry knowledge and pass that down to the team has been really rewarding because again, it's something that I'm very passionate about. And we now have a team of people who really understand it.
Love that. Love that. Yeah. It's one of those common challenges that almost every founder faces. It's like, hey, how do I find right people in my organization, right? Now, for some of the listeners tuning in and they want to know actually, I might go through this later on. I might struggle with hiring. What arm of the business did you find that it was hard to find like team members to execute on like this specific role? What was that specifically, if you don't mind sharing?
Paid, 100% paid. Especially as I was mentioning earlier with the healthcare space in general, there is a lot of red tape and regulation when it comes to healthcare and advertising. And I think that's been the hardest hire has been finding individuals who really, because if it's a space you're not familiar with, you might have had great success and a great track record running paid at a SaaS company.
Mm.
That's not going to necessarily translate to moving into the healthcare space. If
Mm.
you have the understanding and knowledge of paid strategy, but you don't understand necessarily how does that relate from selling a software product to trying to get an individual human to engage in a healthcare service. They're very different approaches. Whereas, and speaking specifically about just this scenario, when you're selling a software product, you're providing a solution to some sort of service or product they're looking for to a problem they're trying to solve. When it comes to especially healthcare, especially mental health care, you're sometimes reaching people who are unsure if they have a problem or like they don't necessarily know if what
Mm.
that solution is, or they don't know if like therapy or psychiatry is the next step or medication is the next step. I think that's a very interesting difference between the two. And I've just seen that the hiring for paid has been one of the hardest things just in our space.
Mm. Yeah, so just to clarify, it's more so like how do we actually, on the fulfillment side for the ICP you work with, how do we actually create a bigger gap to get more patients in for like clinics, like actually create more of like that problem awareness and more of that top of funnel awareness per se, so that it is
Exactly.
more consistent. Now,
I was gonna say I like to compare it if we're not selling a t-shirt, we're
yeah.
selling the feeling of feeling better, which
Mm.
is like very out there in terms of concept, But some you might be great as getting someone to add a item to a cart and complete a purchase. But I've
Mm,
just seen disconnect with some of the hires we've had over the past year of like understanding, no, we're trying to sell someone the idea of feeling relief or
mm.
feeling better, which is different than a physical product.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing in SaaS is it's very product-led growth, and there's a lot more of that. Okay, we know what we want, we know what we're dealing with. In healthcare, but specifically mental health in the mental health space, like it's so tough. And I can only imagine how tough it is like how do you actually create that consistency, right? Like the messaging that resonates and actually speaks to patients who are thinking about, yeah, this is a realization that I might need some help.
Mhm.
Now, with everything you've accomplished, really just like you've doubled your pipelines, you're scaling, you're focusing on really just like creating a lot more of that personal brand awareness. I'd love to hear more about the vision for the future this year. What's top of mind for growing Rex marketing over the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that truthfully, where we're at right now is so my co-founder and I think that we're in a place where I'm an entrepreneur at heart. Like I'm a second time founder. I was the founder of an ed tech company previously and exited in 2021. And then this is my co-founder's first venture, my second venture. And I think we're really in a place where we're really happy with our team. We truthfully have a really good pipeline and regular recurring pipeline that's coming in on a monthly basis
Yeah.
from organic, paid, etc. What's funny is my co-founder and I are actually tossing around ideas of what it's going to look like for the future. We're unsure at this point in time if we envision Rex scaling to be a multiple hundred client company or if we're happy with just where we're at right now. Yeah, so I wish I had a better answer for you, but we're definitely in a place of we actually, because some of the best words of advice that I've had from a mentor is that not every company needs to be the biggest company. It's okay if your company stays small and is profitable and bring in revenue every month and like you're very happy and happy with the success you've seen. I'm getting the itch actually of some additional ventures on top of Rex. What's been very nice is, like I said, we've gotten to a place where our team is very well versed in what we're doing, and we're very happy with our team. Yeah, so my co-founder and I are kind of just tossing around ideas of what it would look like for us to introduce her introduce her own venture, me introduce my own venture, keeping Rex the same size it is. But I'm definitely a serial entrepreneur at heart. So Rex is not it by a long shot. It's
Mm.
just one successful company that we've launched and we're happy with. And it can continue to grow to another size, to continue growing to a maybe a much larger size. But if not, we'd honestly be very happy with the success we've seen so far.
Love that. Yeah. And I think that's such a it's relatable too. I mean, that's fair to say because I think oftentimes in entrepreneurship, there's almost like this glamorization of, hey, we got to grow this company like this fast and it has to be this large and that's the only way we're successful. But from what it sounds like, you're really focused on like sustainable growth, making sure that the quality of service offerings is not going to be diluted, right? As you start to like really hone in and create more of the brand awareness, as I was talking a little bit about. On that note, who's going to do the sales calls though? If you do look at other ventures, like what does all of that look like then?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think that we cross that bridge when we get there and figure out what that would look like. And I was going to say on that note you were sharing, I think that I come from tech, I come from companies that are VC funded, etc. I often just have a just like logical struggle with as a founder myself of the number of companies that I've worked at that have scaled multiple hundreds of employees that just aren't profitable, that aren't bringing in money yet, that just are VC funded. And then we're basically working and running to the next fundraise to get to a profitable state, which just for myself, like there obviously a number of companies do it, and that's just one approach to running a company. And that's not always the case that you're not profitable, but it is oftentimes VC funded companies are not profitable until a certain period of time and years down the road. I'm happy with in a short period of time of how we are profitable every month at this current point and driving growth and profit every month over
Yeah.
month. So, yeah, I just think that sometimes that when it comes to entrepreneurship and starting your company, there's just that idealized view of I want to have multiple hundred employees underneath me. I want to scale this to whatever, get VC funded, etc.
Yeah.
But that's not, you don't have to do that. And then oftentimes in that scenario, like you sometimes get a bit stuck where you're
Yeah.
in a hamster wheel where you're running for profitability, profitability. We got to get profitable. Where you're answering to a board, to your VC fund,
Yeah.
and it just that's not the kind of entrepreneurship that I picture for myself in terms of what I want. I've worked at those companies. There's nothing wrong with them. They're everyone that's just the playbook people do and a lot of companies do. But when I think about my own companies, I'm happy scaling at a smaller pace, but regular profitability.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And what are we living for then at the end of the day, right? I think oftentimes like founders get so caught up in that day to day that they forget that what are we really doing this for at the end of the day? What is that balance, right? Life. And that's more on the personal
Mm.
human level. That often gets lost in that journey. No, I think that's super really wholesome and like really great to hear. And I know it resonates with some of the listeners as well. They're probably thinking, hey, we're not I feel bad that I'm not like scaling as fast as I can. I see my direct competitors doing that, but that's totally okay. It's really about what you're comfortable with and like just loving what you do. Now that we're in the lightning round, one last question. How do you see the growth marketing industry evolving in the coming years, especially now with AI and automation on the rise? How is Rex marketing, for instance, positioning itself for that type of future?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think that the biggest thing that I've seen with the rise of AI, first off, is people not knowing how to use it properly. I think that it's so funny the number of times I can go to a website for an early stage brand or a startup or what have you, and I clearly tell that they used AI to draft their website copy or draft content for their website or used it to produce an image or a explainer video. Like I think that what I find very interesting is that a lot of people just, I think, maybe mistakenly think that consumers are not intuitive enough to understand what's AI generated and not AI generated.
Yeah.
Because I think that it's been around a bit enough and we've engaged with it enough that I think that the everyday consumer, in my opinion, understands what is AI generated and not. There might be, it's getting better and improving to mask it a bit. But I think the biggest misstep when it comes to marketing and growth marketing is teams using it to an extent where they think that the end buyer is not savvy enough. So I don't know if that in terms of how I see the industry going and what I'm seeing, as I'm seeing that more and more often of the just lack of, I'd say, leveraging AI to improve your strategy, but not just using it as a crux. So I'm very interested to see, yeah, what happens with that. Are people going to eventually understand that, hey, maybe we shouldn't just copy and paste this to our website and hope it's all good, or if that makes sense. So I do think that I also think that with AI, that a lot of more people have become like I have used it as like a label of, oh, I've become a better marketer because AI. And it's no, I think you become lazy. I think you become a lazy marketer with the introduction of AI because you can't, you're just sticking a prompt into a generative tool and spitting it out and using it for something without much strategy behind it.
And
Yeah.
validate as well. Like,
Yeah.
hey, and I think that's one of the biggest things is like that, like you said, that people are using it as a crux. There's that over reliance on AI, but like validation, really understanding, okay, maybe this is outdated, like whatever that you put in the prompt, whatever is generated out of it. Is this actually speak on a human to human level, even?
And I think that for me speaking personally, maybe this is just me because I'm in tech and leverage AI and workflows, etc. But I also, as a consumer, and this is maybe just my hot take, whenever I see a brand that's very clearly leveraged I take it a bit of personal of, do you think I'm stupid and wouldn't have realized that? Or it's almost a bit offensive as a consumer, where I'm like, oh, you're trying to pull one over on me a bit, or you're just like a cheap brand. Like it creates a very negative connotation for me
Yeah,
when I can tell that a brand has very lazily leveraged AI, whether it be for their website, content I've read, or whatever it may be, a social post, a caption.
absolutely. It's very disingenuous and comes off as like expert marketers like yourself will see, hey, this is like very transactional. There's like some And how can you actually like really buy into the use case then, right? Maybe even that as well probably is AI generated to start with.
Yeah.
Really, really important lessons for the listeners out there. Everyone's super excited about generative by AI, like LLMs, but don't lose that creative spark, especially in this industry where you have to be out of the box and you have to speak on a human to human level. So learn to cut through the noise, and you're doing that already with Rex Marketing. So excited to see where you take this and where you end up next as well with some other ventures. On that note, that wraps up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your remarkable journey thus far from like the tech SaaS space to like getting into the agency world. We're really excited to see what comes next. And you're very integral with really crafting customized marketing solutions to clients within the mental health wellness space. Excited to see where this leads next. To our
Yeah.
listeners,
I was
yeah,
gonna say thanks so much. I appreciate you having me.
absolutely. One last note to our listeners, if you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also find some more resources and insights from us at closers.io, where we're dedicated to helping businesses accelerate their growth through trained appointment setters and world-class sales systems. Until then, keep climbing, and we will see you all on the next one.